Hey, everybody. Nick Leydorf. How's it going? I wanted to say hi to you. Thanks for coming in and saying and stopping by to Facebook Live. I This is off the clock. It's just something I'm going to do. Um, if you followed any of the stuff I did over the summer with uh, accountability and writing, have these. I usually come up with these like ridiculous goals. Like this summer, I was going to write 1,500 words a day on a book that I'm working on. And so, I wrote 175 pages of that book, and then I just got really burned out. So, um, my goal for this is just going to be a Facebook Live that I'm going to do every day for 365 days, and then I'm going to have in the meantime I'll have guests on, and we'll do like a quick kind of show where I interview people that I want to talk with and learn about their processes with life and things like that. And then we'll do those probably in the evening when everyone's available. And I'll do those like once a week. So, but what off the clock is basically I'm just going to talk about the three things that I really enjoy. One, creativity and how to make myself a more creative person, and how to, you know, how I work at how I want to work at that, how I want to get better at that. And I'm going to show kind of where I'm at to hold myself accountable. So like I'll share with you in a bit like where I'm at with my book, and also kind of some things that I'm writing right now, and I'll share my screen with you. And if you have ideas and you want to participate, there's the chat. So definitely say what's up um, and say hi. That'd be great. Super helpful. Otherwise, it's just kind of me just talking into the void. But I know this is the first day, and I'm going to keep doing it no matter what. The second thing I want to talk about is how to increase productivity, and that's something that I really need to do because I've got a bunch of stuff going on. I'm a husband and a dad and an attorney and also a comedian, and that's a lot of time. And there's only so much time during the week, and I want to be able to do all of those things and achieve everything that I want to do. So trying to be more productive with the time that I have is something that I've found to be helpful and necessary. So I'm going to share some stuff as I learn and I read, and I'll share some stuff with you guys to not only hold me accountable, but to kind of share what I've learned. Because I mean, um, why not? And then the third thing is just like self improvement and how to become, better at all of those things and a better human being, because that's something that I'm really passionate about too. I always want to like be a better person than I was the day before, right? I mean, that's kind of a cheesy way of putting it, but um, that's something I really want to do. And also, I'm always trying to learn one thing and read. I try and read as much as I can, or listen to audiobooks in the car. I've just got that real. I just love to learn new things and learn about different ideas and how to make them work and do them differently for me. Um, so those are kind of the three things that I'm going to be talking about with these Facebook Lives, and kind of just document the journey of me trying to achieve these goals that I've got. Um, so I think I'll start off with like what worked in 2020 for me, and then I'll talk about what didn't work, and then I'll talk about what my goals are for 2021. Um, so I think what worked for me in 2020 was kind of discovering routines and systems, and in trying to become, if you as you develop a routine, I found it makes it way easier for you to work within the time that you have. And so, like for instance, when I started that goal of writing 1,500 words a day, I had a routine in place. It was just going to be every morning before I started my work at the office. I would just go and just write 1,500 words, and that I would get that done hopefully in an hour. Um, as you know, spoiler alert, I burnt myself out about 90 some days into that process, and I achieved a lot, but it wasn't sustaining. And I don't think if you're going to start with something, you got to figure out what you can do to going to be able to achieve. Is it achievable? is one of the probably the steps in that, and we're all going to meet resistance. So like what I really meant, what I found was like this was a goal that was achievable, but it was a lot, and I met with a lot of resistance, and I kind of had to fight through that. Um, so I had to kind of alter that, and that's what I'm going to do with 2021. Is instead of just setting a ridiculous goal of writing 1,500 words a day, I'm just going to write for an hour, and it doesn't matter um, how many words what the output is at the end of that hour. It's going to be 160 minutes uninterrupted time where I can just focus on that. So that's going to be my goal for 2021. Because I saw this. If you haven't listened to Tim Ferriss's podcast where he interviews Jerry Seinfeld, I listened to that. I just finished listening to that yesterday, and it's a fantastic episode about anybody that is not only just a comedian but is in the creative arts, and how important it is, and how successful Jerry Seinfeld was. You may not agree that he's like the best comedian. I like Seinfeld. There's some stuff I'm not a really huge fan of that he does, but I mean, you can't doubt the fact that he's one of the most successful and prolific comedians that we've seen. And his way of doing it is he does that. He just writes for an hour. He's like, how can you be a comedian or a writer if you're not writing every day? And you treat it like a job and work, and you gotta, you're putting in the work. That's kind of what he referred to as in that podcast. So definitely check that out. That Tim Ferriss's podcast is something that was really cool. Can't remember the name of that podcast, but I think it's just the Tim Ferriss podcast. So check that out. So then that's my number one goal for 2021, right? For an hour every day. Kind of jumped ahead with that, but in what worked for me in 2020 was on my way to work, I would kind of focus on the things that I was happy with in my life. So one thing that's really easy, I think, is, especially with 2020, how just so difficult it was, is how we got wrapped up in how negative everything was. And when you're operating from a mindset of negativity, trying to achieve something, I don't think that's where you want to be able to create and to enjoy life. Because I mean, if you're focused on what you don't have, then you're in that scarcity kind of mindset, and it's kind of like woo-woo stuff. If you don't, I grew up in a place where woo-woo was just a bunch of bullshit. No one ever was like, oh, like energy, all this kind of stuff. If you can't touch it or put your hands on it, where I came from, it was kind of like, yeah, that's kind of woo-woo. Why would, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But as I've gone on and things kind of happen for a reason. I think that's one thing that happened. So I met my wife, and she's on a journey herself of, self-improvement in her own business, and she's a Reiki practitioner. And just kind of, she's really introduced that kind of mindset shift from, a negative mindset, focusing on what I don't have, to focusing on what I do. And I think that's been a big, something big that I've really had an opportunity to learn from, and learn from her. So that's something that I've learned from her as well. So what did work? We talked about those two things. The other thing, meditation. The one thing I'm looking into is like a system of meditation. What I've done is just had some kind of like, there's some apps that you can have like guided meditations. That's kind of what I've been doing. I found that to be really helpful to be able to quiet, your mind. And I think that that's something that I'm learning more about, like how our minds are, how they work. Like our brain, we have this supercomputer in our brain, and it's not really meant for focusing on one thing. It had to shift its focus from multiple different things, because I mean, we were in a survival when when we were first, millions of years of evolution had just molded our brain in such a way where it's hard for us to focus on one certain thing. So, but when you have that ability to focus on those one thing and quiet everything else, I find that it really helps me figure out where it is I want to do, and the noise level in my brain kind of subsides, and then I'm able to kind of, when I'm done, I'm refreshed and I can go through my task list of things that I want to do. And I'll share with you kind of, I think tomorrow I'll do that with the way that I've structured how I plan my week out. I think that's going to be helpful um, for you. So those are the three things, and I'll show you where I'm at right now with my book. And let me share that screen with you. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay, let's pull that up. Yep. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. And you can see my face and the book. So this is my book, and it's not done by any means. Um, it right now it's 177 pages, and I'm to the point where I'm not adding a lot to it. I'm trying to edit, and so I'm 177 pages into it. It seems like when I edit, I keep adding things, which I guess is going to be natural. I never wrote a book before, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But I am, let's see, I am about 17 and a half pages in. So a little about like what, 9%, I think that is. So that's, I just, each day I'm going to knock out a few pages. The first part of this is a gigantic story that I wrote, and so that's going to be the main um, part of this book is about this story, and then I'm going to kind of break it up, the rest of it, into these other manageable pieces, and kind of insert some other stories in between it. So that's where I'm at with that. I want to be like transparent too, because like the one thing that I find helpful is like you ask a lot of comedians or writers, and some of them are like, oh, I don't really have a process. I don't really have a this or a that. I don't know. I think we should be sharing all this. It's not like if you're going to be good at this and good at writing, it's everything's going to be personal, right? It's going to be if you're writing from your what you know, then no one else is going to be able to write stuff like you do, right? I think that's what they call about finding your voice. I've read a lot of stuff about comedy and even just writing in general, like how do you find your voice? And that's how you're writing from your perspective. And if you're writing from your perspective, then no one else can steal anything from you because no one else is you, right? So I just want to be as transparent as possible with this process, and kind of, because I think I'm going to learn from it, and maybe you can get something out of it. I have no idea, but we'll see. I'm just gonna. I always like to try new things, and I think that would be helpful. Maybe if we just kind of are all sharing and going on a journey of like, this is something that we're maybe can all learn from. So that's why I want to kind of like share maybe where I'm at with certain things, and then kind of hold myself accountable and learn from it and grow from it and become more creative and um, produce more. I mean, that's what I want to do. I think that's what we all really want to do. If we're all artists, we want to be able to put out something that we're proud of, and we want to do a lot of that. So, all right. So what didn't work for me in 2020? Um, so also from like the negative mindset that I kind of come from, I think part of it's being a lawyer too. Um, I always have to look at the negative side of something. I've got to look at like what could go wrong. So it's got this negativity bias. And I think we all have that as human beings. But when you have a profession where you have to look at what could possibly go wrong, I don't know. For me, it seems like I have to like think about those things and I have to plan. So it kind of just always puts me in this negative kind of mindset. And so that's something that didn't work for me. I didn't really like that. And I think I touched on about this earlier. But and then when you make decisions from that negative mindset, you're always going to be in that when you're making a decision in a place where you are not at your 100%, then how are you? It seems impossible for that decision to be able to work because you're not coming at it from a place when you're at your 100. If you're at your 50 or 45% and you're like, I'm going to make this major life decision, how can you expect that that's going to work because you didn't have it can come at it from a place of positivity and where you're actually optimized, working at an optimal level. Not really as articulate, but this is the first time I'm saying this, so whatever. So if you don't like it, tough shit. Start your own show. um, so now getting back to those two goals for 2021: write an hour every day. Touched on that. I'm not gonna focus on like how many words that come out of that, or if anything comes at all. But I'm just gonna be sitting in front of a computer, and I'm just gonna write for that entire hour, uninterrupted, absolutely no interruptions. And I'm gonna have to plan that in a time when those interruptions are gonna happen. So for me, that's probably gonna be early in the morning. Um, with no distractions. So that's what I'm going to do. Number two, I'm going to finish my book. So I got 177 pages in, about 9% done editing it. There's going to be some other stuff done at the end. I want to turn it over to somebody that's way more skilled with writing and editing than I am, so I can give a second set of eyes. And maybe they may say, "Hey, this is all dog shit. You don't want to let anyone else read it." And okay, that's fine. But at least I've gone on that journey with myself and I held myself accountable. I met these goals. And what's that thing? If you shoot for the moon, you might reach the stars or something like that. I don't know. That's some corny bullshit, but I think there's some truth in that, right? We're going to learn about yourself and you're going to meet these resistance things every day. Like I've been through it before. So about day 75, I dreaded every absolute minute of having to write that 1,500 words every day. I hated every minute of it. I kept pushing through that resistance and it got a little bit easier and a little bit easier. But it came to a point, I think, where I wasn't managing my time elsewhere. So I felt like I didn't have time. I'll get into this tomorrow. So I'm going to make a note of it. I think tomorrow I'm going to talk about how I learned how to, what works for me in terms of productivity, day-to-day to-do lists and things like that. So I don't know when I'm going to do it in terms of time tomorrow, but I will do that. So I plan on doing these for about 20 minutes at least, I think a day, 15, 20 minutes. So I want to share with you kind of what I'm writing right now in terms of just where I'm at with jokes and things like that. And these are, I'm going to try and this is the work I need to do on myself, which is not give a shit about what anyone else thinks, right? Like part of doing stand-up comedy for 8 years is the reason I started doing it is because I like to create and I like to write. But then at some point, after we start this journey of being a comedian, you get to this point where it's like, what do others think of me? And what do you get wrapped up in this thing where, because there's going to be, it does affect it, right? Like other people are going to listen to what you have to say and they're going to judge you or they're not going to laugh, right? But at some point, as long as you're happy with what you're doing, then who gives a shit about what anyone else thinks, right? So I just have to, maybe this is me, this whole thing is obviously me talking out loud because there's no one here in this portion of it, but just me getting more comfortable with sharing the creative process. And also I'm going to be learning and reading more about that and sharing that with you. And then in turn, it's also going to help me learn what works, what doesn't work, and giving less of a shit about what anyone else says, right? So that was a long way for me to say that. Let me share kind of what I'm writing right now, and you may not like it. Tough shit. So let's see. All right, so what I'm focused on right now, obviously, write what you know. I'm a lawyer, and I've been going through how COVID has completely changed the practice of law, and writing that from my perspective. So, like, here's something that I've been working on the last few days. So this first one I've been writing in the same word Google Doc, and let's see, it's written in the same Google Doc and kind of improving it each day. So the premise, the idea, is COVID changed so much in the criminal justice system, right? I mean, that's kind of an easy premise, but then it's like what you do with it, right? So I've been reading David Lynch's book. Um, that guy is super creative, and the name of the book escapes me right now. Let me see if I can find it um, on my Kindle app here on my phone. I would definitely check it out. It's Catching the Big Fish, and kind of the premise of his book is that ideas are like fishing, and the big fish um, survive and live way underneath the surface. So, like, you know, you can come up with a joke or an idea, whatever it is, but for this, it's like comedy. So, like, the funny things, like, okay, that's funny, would lie more at the surface area of stuff. And the more that you focus and get to the bottom of what it is you're talking about, that's where those really big ideas of creativity are survive way underneath the surface, and it takes a while for you to get there. So just kind of taking this this Google Doc, and writing with it. So this was one joke. So appearing for court on Zoom is so much easier. You don't have to drive to court. You don't have to talk to anyone, and you don't have to wear pants. So, like, simple, right? It's introducing the topic. It's not amazing yet, but like the idea of, I'm going back to this premise, which is this, how do I try and work that out? So this is just me kind of working through all these different things. Um, and so what I want to convey, like my subtopic, is that, like, um, subtext of this is like, it's all, something that's underneath the surface of this. I'm not actually going to come out and say, but just how it's so different. It's never going to be the same. It's broken now. How is anyone going to have to ever do this again in the same way? So that's kind of where, and these aren't done yet. So let's see. They used to say, "I'll rise" when the judge came in the room. They didn't do it anymore, because if you, if you stood up, it'd just be a Zoom picture of their junk on on court. Again, simple. I think it ties in with the subtext. It's not perfect yet, but hey, whatever. Um, this is something I worked on during the summer when we were doing outdoor shows. So the idea of, like, there's nothing more exhilarating than being a lawyer. Me getting up out of my my bed 5 minutes before the hearing, throwing on a suit just on the top half, and being in the basement and defending another man's life wearing nothing but a shirt, a tie, a suit, and Iron Man underwear. And so that just makes me laugh. And it it's, let's see. I think the idea with this one was, so, like, this one I kind of liked. I came up with this one yesterday, just trying to think about what are the differences between before after. I used to have to go to court and would sit there for and like an hour before my case was called. Now, I can just sit there in a gaming chair, do 17 other different things, have a Seinfeld living room on my background, and just uh, watch Judge Judy, and call it legal research. So, again, not tied together, but just getting these ideas down, I think, is what the point is. I've seen some crazy shit go through happen uh, in Google Court so far, which is there's comments. Oh, hey. Oh, for some reason they weren't showing up on this. So I'm sorry that you guys have been saying these things, and I was able to see them in the program I'm using. So, oh, hey, Daddy, it's Julian. Hey, buddy, what's up? Um, Don Joyce for story writing, like index cards for key events. Yeah, I use index cards for storyboards and animation. Yep, that's something that um, I do when I was going to record an album that I had. What I did was That was going to be in April. And I've been planning for a long time, so I was going to have an hour of time. And so I took each minute and broke it down into an index card. So I had 60 index cards on a big wall in my office, and I just mapped out what all the 60 minutes would be. And I took other index cards and would move them around based on how long the bit would take and things like that. I think that definitely kind of helps to be able to take that and make it into something that is going to work for you. Let's see. It says there are 9 comments, but I'm not seeing all of them. It's weird. But thanks for commenting. We're almost up here. We're at 25 minutes, but thanks for checking it out, and make sure that you like and subscribe to everything that I'm doing. I'd appreciate that. You can find me at comedian at law on Instagram, and Facebook page is Nick Leydorf. Tomorrow, at some point, I'll talk about productivity and to-do lists and how to structure that, and what I found has been really helpful to how to take, being a lawyer, all the stuff that goes along with that, and how to put that onto my calendar and how to make that work, and how to be accountable to my calendar and not have to keep saying that thing that I used to say all the time, which is this: I'm so busy, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. So I'll share with you the solution that I've found for that, and it's been really helpful. So that'll be at some point tomorrow. Might be 1 o'clock. I don't know, but I'll schedule it, and then we'll go from there. So a little bit over time today. I really thank you for checking in. If you did, if you didn't, whatever. I won't really know. So I appreciate you all being here, and have a good rest of your day. And